Hello, everyone, and welcome back to day 2 of the e-commerce virtual summit. This is co-hosted with all of our partners over at Zentail, REQ, Metrics, ClearBank, as well as Bold Commerce. We have a fantastic day lined up for the sessions and for day 2 of the actual event. And again, there's a nice little screenshot of our partners that have helped to make this all happen. But we have a great lineup for today. We have Michael over at Zentail. He's going to be talking about kind of all around like demand planning in 2020 and how you can make sure that you're always kind of keeping up with consumer demand, right? And how you can kind of do that. He's got a great presentation prepared for the next 30 or so minutes. And we're going to jump into like about 15 minutes or so, Mike, I would say for Q&A. And so we definitely want to be doing attending that. And then second, we have our partners over at ClearBank talking all around how to keep up with inventory demands too, if you're running out of cash. So you're going to talk about like cash flow and so forth. So stay tuned for the second session, which will kick off at about 3 p.m. Eastern time, so in about 57 minutes from now. So definitely stay tuned and appreciate everyone joining. If this is your second day, thank you for joining us again. I know this is really valuable out of your time. Really great really valuable to have you guys join us for your time. I know we hosted one of these events a couple of weeks ago, and it was really big success and a lot of repeat visitors too. So thank you so much for joining us again. So again, if you have any questions for Mike or anything like that, shoot it over in the chat box, and I'll be sure to pitch those towards the end of the presentation. We have a couple poll questions too. They'll be coming up, so stay tuned for those as well. And we'll be kind of launching those and kind of getting your thoughts of where your business is at, some of the channels you're currently leveraging, how many channels you're leveraging, and so forth. We also have a resource provided by the Zentail team. It's all around kind of inventory management in 2020 that they helped to put together. So it's an ebook that's right in the handout section. So feel free to take that with you and download it and share it with your teams. And yeah, last but not least, just like always, the session's being recorded. We'll send this out to you hopefully by Friday. All the sessions will be on one nice page. You'll be able to take them and watch them on your own time. So with that being said, same old as yesterday, and as we move along to tomorrow and presentation after this, I'm going to be kind of kicking it over here to Mike for the rest of the portion of the presentation, for the next 40 minutes or so.
All right, thank you very much, Nick. So I should get some housekeeping out of the way. This is my first time presenting through GoToMeeting, so I in advance appreciate everyone's patience. But really excited that I had the opportunity to speak about demand forecasting with that focus on centralized demand forecasting. This is something that I'm personally very passionate about. And internally at Zentail, we've been talking about this a ton the past few months, so very topical as well. We have a few things we're excited to announce coming very shortly. So with that, just to tell you a little bit about Zentail. Our mission is to make e-commerce simple. I have a personal goal of saying that at least once per day. I'm I think up to 4 for the day so far, so I've exceeded my goal. And what we are a commerce operations management platform, really with that focus on workflows and the user experience that helps retailers, online retailers in the 5 core areas outlined on this screen in front of us. A little bit about myself. I've been with Zentail for a few years, working in operations, implementation, sales, and customer success. My primary goal is to make sure that retailers who have that drive to compete and to thrive in the evolving commerce landscape are successful as Zentailians, to put it succinctly. On a personal note, as a dog lover, as a Harry Potter fan as well, you'll usually find me taking my dog Minerva for walks or hikes on weekends if the weather permits it here in the DC, Baltimore area. Otherwise, I'm probably binge watching whatever TV show I'm into at the moment. Right now it's The Good Place, almost through the final season. All right, now to the interesting stuff. Here's an overview of what we'll cover in the next 20 minutes or so. First, we'll just define what demand forecasting is. We'll go through some like formal and more in practice definitions. We'll also have a few poll questions, as Nick mentioned, for everyone. We'll talk about the benefits of centralized demand forecasting, the impact to your business, and finally, we'll call out some really important things to consider when putting together an efficient demand forecasting process at your company. I'll pause for a second just to call out and echo what Nick said at the start. If you have questions, please chat them in through the chat function here. We'll try to keep an eye on those throughout the presentation. We do have time slotted at the very end for a Q&A, but don't wait until the end to ask questions, just fire them off as they come in. All right, so demand forecasting. One of the reasons why this is such a hot topic at Zentail is because we understand that 34% of the top 50 US retailers have reported poor forecasting accuracy. So what that means is maybe just a 1% deviation in overstocking or understocking could be thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions if we're talking about the top US retailers of dollars in cost to your business. So it's a tough question, like why is this such a challenge for even the top US retailers? And some of the things that we'll go into today is talking about the cost of overstocking, the cost of understocking, what that means for your business, as well as what to consider when putting together some really efficient demand forecasting processes. All right, we've apparently evolved from the Webster's definition that I used in my middle school reports and papers to the Wikipedia definition in the new age of technology. But what is demand forecasting? It's predictive analytics. It tells you what you're going to sell, what you expect the demand to be for your products in a future period. And the reason why that's important is because it helps you make those purchasing decisions and avoid what we call the overstocking, which means you have inventory stuck on your shelves collecting dust. It usually ties up your working capital. If that's the case, it doesn't allow you to invest in other things that you want to. Or you understock, which means you have people knocking at your doors saying, I want this product, and you can't sell it to them. Two things that you definitely want to avoid. Real life definition, it essentially means putting together a well-oiled e-commerce machine that translates to never running out of stock, never wasting shelf space. And we'll talk a little bit later about how it ties into the rest of your business, but having that impact in driving 5-star ratings and customer reviews. All right, poll questions. I'm very excited for this. I've never done this before. How many total channels do you sell on?
Yeah, very interesting. I don't know, what would you have to take a guess from the audience perspective, like how many you've seen as well with all of the brands that you guys work with, how many different channels? I mean, I would anticipate within the range of 2 to 5, but I've seen a lot of brands, with 6+ really trying to be diversified in where they're selling. But curious what you think there, Mike.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what the results show. Just a quick definition: if you're selling on just your website or just Amazon, then the answers should be 1. If it's going to be if you're selling on your website and Amazon and maybe an additional marketplace, you'll be in that 2 to 5 bucket. And then if you're really exposed with your catalog and you're selling on your own website, Amazon, maybe some wholesale channels, Walmart, eBay, Google, Facebook, Jet, Wish, Etsy, etc., you're definitely safely in that 6 or more bucket. I think what we've seen is that people are definitely trending or staying in that 2 to 5 bucket and trending towards that 6 or more bucket as you're able to create processes that support it. And I think in the past 18 months, we've definitely seen an immersion of the addition of a lot of really hot, big new marketplaces and sales channels as different companies and giants in the space prioritize e-commerce. So yeah, definitely curious to see what those results show.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can you see them on your screen now?
I don't know. Let's see. Let me click
okay. No, it's all good. Yeah, so I mean, pretty straightforward. It looks like 83% 2 to 5 channels that they're selling on. So that's kind of what I was thinking about guessing there too. So
Awesome.
cool. You might have to reopen up. Oh no, you were good. Nice. I can see your presentation. Good to go.
All right. So poll question number 2. How are you handling demand forecasting today? So is it through spreadsheets, through a software, or not at all? I think if you're doing it through spreadsheets, you and I probably can get along pretty well and have a lot in common, and could probably share a drink at a bar and vent over the latest typo in a formula in a spreadsheet that we've had. If it's through a software, really excited to hear that as well. It's definitely something that we love to see retailers investing in their business. And if it's not at all, you're not alone. It's really common. It's something that kind of gets put on the wayside at times and isn't top priority compared to so much else that's going on in your day-to-day operations. So I'll pause.
Close that out.
Great.
Yeah, it looks like about 81% are actually, that's how they're handling their demand forecasting. And then another 13% not at all, and then about 6 is just through software.
All right. Love my spreadsheet people. So to move on, what this graphic here is that what we call internally the e-commerce value chain, kind of everything that goes into your day-to-day operations, day-to-day, week-to-week operations as an online retailer. If we look at any one of these, it probably make a lot of sense. If you want to sell online, you have to do pricing management, you have to list your products, you'll have to have a good system for inventory and warehouse management, fulfilling orders, etc. What I think is really interesting about this is it's super clear how if you look at one of these nodes, how it overlaps and impacts the surrounding operations. For example, if I were to just call out one, like order management, changing your pricing, whether up or down, is going to impact the volume of orders that you come in, which is going to then impact how efficient you need your inventory management to be and what it needs to handle. A topic we'll tackle soon is this concept of centralization. So as you can see here, all of these components are really connected within a larger operational workflow. It's intended to show the dependency from one step to another. Again, more on that later. Let's, for now, regain focus, knowing that demand forecasting within an e-commerce business is critical for around-the-clock sales and a series of interconnected steps. As the last step in the operational selling process, so if we look at demand forecasting, where it usually ends up as the last thing that you're doing within this operational cycle, demand forecasting is arguably one of the most important aspects, as future sales and growth really depend on this one node in this value chain. All right, really like this slide and this graphic because it calls out the impact that demand forecasting has on each one of those operations. I'm not going to go into all of these, but just wanted to call out a few, starting with purchasing kind of as a more obvious one. Efficient demand forecasting allows you to have really efficient purchasing. You can be really confident in your purchasing decisions. If you know exactly how much to order and when, you're able to make those purchasing decisions on the cadence that makes the most sense and know that you're making the right decisions. To call out a few other operations, things like listing. If you have poor demand forecasting and you're going out of stock because you didn't order enough, you kind of have to take into consideration whether your listings are up or not, or if you overstock and you don't want to, efficient demand forecasting is going to allow you to avoid toggling those listings on and off as your inventory comes in and out of stock. Inventory management, making sure you have accurate stock counts across all of your sales channels through accurate forecasting. And something really interesting, customer service. I imagine that it's not uncommon for some of your customer service needs, at least from what we've heard, around fielding calls or emails and chats of when is this product going to come back in stock? When can I get access to this hot new item, or would love to have this available for purchase. So if you have that really high quality, efficient demand forecasting in place, it'll reduce those customer support needs within your organization. All right, so for a quick review, demand forecasting, it should take into account sales trends and other operational data to predict the optimal supply and allow you to make those decisions. It has that relationship with each other operation within your e-commerce value chain. And when done properly, it means you have, it means all ships rise. It means you have this increase in value and efficiency across the entire organization. So to go into that in a little bit more detail, especially with that first bullet point, there's a few really important items to call out, like understanding what your holding cost might be, your vendor lead time, your sales data, any trends, differences in historical data when making those forecasts. As far as how it impacts your business, I spoke earlier about the cost of overstocking and the cost of understocking. So I want to talk a little bit more about the cost of overstocking because I think it's a bit less straightforward than the cost of understocking. But if I have too much of an item in stock, I purchased too much, I got a great discount, and now it's sitting on my shelves and it's not moving. It might prevent me from having the capital that's tied up in inventory from doing things like buying the items that I know I want, that I need to sell today, or it might prevent me from being able to have the cash flow available to hire that additional customer service rep or person for the marketing team and for my SEO initiatives, or maybe for youths having that cash available to splurge on a fancy new standing desk. Something that I know I'd be looking forward to. I've only recently gotten to the habit of using a standing desk at my office. All right, so I'm going to speed up a little bit just to make sure we're doing well with our timing for today's session. We've gone over a number of components that tie into demand forecasting with that value chain previously. So while it seems pretty straightforward to kind of look at this for one SKU to understand what my cost of that one SKU is, including, after my commissions to the marketplace, after my shipping cost, as well as the cost to order that in the first place, and to consider what my sales velocity for that one product has been and the lead time for the vendor for that one product. When you start to look at this over the scope of hundreds of products, or what's really common, thousands of products, it gets pretty complex. It gets pretty difficult to manage and to have a good hold on. So if there's one key aspect that we should, to back up for 1 second, the question is, how do companies accomplish this? And with tools that generate reports and automate processes, that's really how you accomplish a machine that's consistently pumping out products and orders. And what ties those two aspects together, the reporting and the automation, that's going to be centralization. So if there's one key aspect to walk away with, it's the importance of centralization in your demand forecasting tool. So within Zentail, to talk about this graphic, on the outside, we'll see those operations, the day-to-day business and what your team is working on. The layer underneath that is going to be the data, things like your vendor lead time, your holding cost, your item cost, your commission cost, cost of goods sold, things like that. And then Zentail is that layer for automation of that process to get you that really efficient, up to the minute accurate demand forecasting. So what I'm really excited about and what we've been working really hard on today is the supply chain management module. I have spent a lot of time interviewing users, interviewing retailers, and making refinements to this within our Zentail platform. So what we have here is a little screenshot of what it looks like within Zentail. To call out just one or two items on this screen, in my opinion, the most important thing about demand forecasting is to answer these two questions. One, how much should I order? And two, when should I order it? So here you can see it calls out your reorder amount is going to be 41 units, and reorder at quantity is going to be 35 units. So once you get down to a certain threshold, pull the trigger and reorder another 40 units. It takes into consideration things like your order cost, holding cost, lead time, item costs, and sales price and profit margins to come up with that optimal number. And the benefit of centralization is that you can then take that recommendation, that optimal recommendation, and create a purchase order from it. So within Zentail, you'll have the access or the ability to then sort by vendor, look at what you need to order, at what quantity within Zentail, add that to a purchase order, generate that PDF and ship it out to your vendors. So really excited, really happy I had the opportunity to speak through or on that subject with everyone. I think I'm only 3 minutes behind schedule, which is good for me. At this point, we're gonna open it up for some questions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michael. We'll jump into some of the questions. I know there's some good ones that have kind of come through here. So I am just kind of sifting through which one I want to kind of start with. Let's start with this one. Coming in from Matt, wants to know, can Zentail predict my inventory 30 days out? That's a good question.
Yeah, really good question, Matt. So I'll give you a short answer and then I'll give you the long answer. Short answer is going to be yes. Long answer is going to be having a centralized system allows Zentail access to the information necessary to have really accurate sales velocity forecasting. So it'll project a future looking like daily sales velocity, however far we could project it, 30 days, 60 days into the future, and also take into consideration things like inbound shipments that you might have or purchase orders that are pending and en route already, as well as shipments that are planned to go out in the future, to not only tell you what your inventory is going to look like based on the sales data in the next 30 days, but also based on other things you have going on in the next 30 days. So good question, Matt. Thank you for raising that.
Let's jump in another one. Kind of question I was curious about. Does Zentail handle FBA inbound shipments with its demand forecasting tools?
Yeah, really good segue from the previous question. Yes, either FBA shipments created from Zentail or just on Amazon that we were able to have visibility into. We are able to take that into consideration, being in the centralized location within a workflow, to take that into account. And actually, if you look at the reorder screen, you'll see a nice little like tick down or tick up based on when we expect that FBA shipment to be made available. And then based on that information, make the right recommendation to how much you should reorder today. So yes is the short answer again, and thanks for raising that question as well.
Awesome. I'm not sure if you can see the one that kind of just came in as well from Bob. I believe you actually just answered this, but correct me if I'm wrong. It's asking, will Zentail demand forecasting take into consideration our inventory at Amazon FBA? I believe that you just answered that though.
Yep, both inventory that you're sending to FBA to make available, as well as the inventory already made available at FBA. To go one step further, successful retailers with Zentail have multiple warehouses. That's really common to have maybe your own merchant fulfilled warehouse, 2 or 3 different fulfillment centers that you manage, as well as an FBA warehouse and or, which is pretty common, a 3PL warehouse. So inventory availability across all of those fulfillment nodes are all surfaced within Zentail.
Thanks, Mike. Let's jump into another one here. Just another good one just came in, so I'm just going to read through that one. But let's see what else we have here. Will demand forecasting also help me understand my profitability? Another really good question, actually.
Yeah, so this is probably getting to like the technical definitions of demand forecasting. So I don't know what the technical definition will say in regards to if it forecast profitability. I can't answer that from our perspective. Our approach to it is to, yes, state what your profitability will be with certain forecasts in mind, including how much you should reorder. And when we're making that recommendation, we're taking into account what your profit is historically for a specific product. That all goes into the first part of the calculation, which is the economic order quantity. All in all, it's an effort to minimize those two costs we talked about, your cost of overstocking and cost of understocking. So that's profitability is a really important variable in making the recommendation within Zentail.
Let's jump into another question here that came in from Aaron moments ago. He wants to know either or. I am primarily selling via my own D2C channel and just getting started with Amazon. Are you focused on 3P marketplaces, or do you also address and integrate with indirect channels?
Great, thanks for asking that, Aaron. I recommend, if anyone's curious to learn more about Zentail, you could navigate to Zentail.com, and within our partners page, as well as other areas of the homepage, you'll have a more comprehensive list of our integration partners and who we're integrated with natively. To answer that directly for you, Aaron, yes, we do also work with shopping carts and have native integrations, and are partnered with the leading shopping carts like Ecommerce and Shopify, which I think are probably two of the more common ones.
Appreciate that. Let's see, and I can shoot over a couple of links in the chat box as we go into the next question as well, so we can get that over. But let's jump into another one. If I have multiple warehouses, how much more complicated does that make demand forecasting, or distribution centers too, as I guess you could say?
Yeah, I mean, this is something you could definitely make super complex, especially if you start considering whether or not you want the inventory at those distribution centers available for specific sales channels or not. So it depends. It could still be simple where you say, I have all these DCs and I just want to, if I've inventoried any of them, make them available everywhere, and in which case it's not super complicated. But adding more variables to this definitely adds another layer of complexity and makes it more of a challenge for retailers to kind of have a grasp on and have a really seamless solution to, especially for the 81% of us using spreadsheets for this answer.
Awesome. Let's see what other kind of questions we have. I guess Dustin asked this earlier in the day, and I think he did touch on it, but I just want to make sure I do ask it. For demand forecasting, do you have any recommendations for softwares to use, or spreadsheets, or spreadsheet platforms? Obviously, I think you went through a little demo of Zentail and whatnot, so you can kind of elaborate a little bit more on how that, you guys can help them there.
Yeah, I'm biased, but I think a conversation with Zentail would certainly make sense to see if Zentail is the right fit for you, depending on what your goals are. So that's certainly viable. I think there's maybe some other good tools or formulas out there as well that people may be more familiar with and open to sharing, and probably a good chance to plug, or opportunity to plug, the email address to reach out to. So if anyone wants to have follow-up or has follow-up questions that we're not able to get to on this session, or wants to start a conversation with us, please don't hesitate to reach out to hello@zentail.com, and we'll be excited to continue the conversation.
Awesome. Just shout that out to the audience so you can check over in the chat box that email address as well. Good question just came in from Toby. How long should a business be running before actually considering automation? It's a really good question. I'm sure that happens with a lot of business owners to think, am I spending too much time on this or this process? I guess, have you seen any tipping points when brands should be starting to think about, implementing automation? I would say from the start, in my opinion, but that's not with everything, though, I don't think.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I actually have seen a table like maybe a year ago that answered it really specifically. How much time are you spending on something before you should spend money or to automate it. So I think in the somewhere on the internet, there's a very specific answer to that. I, I wish I had that offhand. But the answer I'm able to give is it depends. What are you spending your time on? How would you spend that time differently, or how else would you spend that time if you didn't have to run those spreadsheets and manual processes on a regular basis? A question I like to ask people is, how frequently do you run the reporting to, in this case, to do your demand forecasting? And then the follow-up question is usually like, why at that cadence? How frequently would you like to run it? And if people are doing this only on a quarterly cadence or a monthly cadence, but they'd love to be able to do it weekly or daily, and then you know what you would do with that time instead, or what you would do if you had those answers in front of you right away, and that brings value to your business, that certainly help drive that decision for an individual business.
Nice. That's a great answer. It does look like we answered the majority of questions, that I've kind of seen come through. But before we do kind of, sign off here momentarily, I've been asking kind of every speaker, this question just to finish off with one last, piece of advice for these e-commerce brands, right? As we're, about a month and a half, give or take, into 2020, right? If there's something from, maybe your presentation that, a brand should kind of take away with, or maybe something that you have seen internally, working with a lot of different brands themselves, like that's top of mind. I know there's always something every year, right? Everything from like, VR to, personalization to et cetera, right? There's many things. But is there anything that you guys have seen internally, or something that a brand should be paying attention to in 2020 as they approach the Q4 holidays, of course, that everyone's preparing for?
Yeah. So I think something that the first thing that comes to mind for me, and I have the benefit, as do most people in this business, of being a consumer of e-commerce as well as a conveyor of goods for it. So I always like to consider, like, from the consumer perspective, what are my thoughts? And something that seems to be a growing trend and of growing importance is really high quality listings and high quality content across each sales channel where you want it. It's really interesting to think about the evolution of e-commerce, and like, if I were to walk into a store and I were to pick up my cell phone, or a cell phone that I wanted to buy, I could, feel its weight, I could turn it over, I could, look at myself in the mirror on the phone and have a pretty good picture of that. A lot of that's lost selling online, and there are only so many ways to convey that information to consumers through an online listing. So using all of the tools at your disposal and having high quality images, multiple images, really descriptive bullet points, videos if you're able to and have access to that, and conveying that message and telling that story through alternate means versus the in-person experience has been like a growing trend, and something really important that we've heard a lot about recently.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Michael, and the team over at Zentail, and for everyone joining us today as well for day 2, session 1, of course. I know that we're still people on the line and whatnot, but I think we got through all the questions that we needed to. But again, we still have another session in about 20 or so minutes as we're kind of preparing in the back end for that too. We're going to be joined by our partners over at Clearbank. We're going to be speaking towards how to keep pace with inventory demand without the necessary cash flow. I know that happens a lot. I guess I shouldn't say a lot like with brands, but it does. You run into those times, right, when you need the cash flow for whatever it may be. Maybe it's for marketing ad spend, right, during the holidays, or even, like I said, to keep up with inventory demands too. So they're going to kind of walk through. I believe they're going to go through like when you should be actually deciding to make this financial decision for your business, and the potential opportunities for you to move forward with. But again, I want to thank you everyone for joining us, and Michael as well for your time today. It's definitely been very valuable. Just a reminder, this has been recorded, so we'll be sending this out to you guys by Friday, so you can kind of go ahead and review as well. And last but not least, if you'd like to follow up with the Zentail team, of course, you can kind of go right directly to their website or reach out to them at hello@zentail.com. And they'd be happy to answer any further questions about product or any next steps if you'd like to learn more. So again, thank you everyone, and we'll see you in the next session in about 20 minutes or so.